Hello, my name is Benjamin Dupre, and I am here to ask you, what is the grandest movie that you have ever seen? A few answers might spring to mind, such as The Lord of the Rings, perhaps Star Wars, maybe even Blade Runner. Three different movie franchises that have an emphasis of turning up the scale to 11. They're filled with these big, expansive worlds that are just chock full of so much detail in terms of the cultures that are developed, in terms of the plot threads that are developed, and even in terms of things like architecture and even the technological level that is being displayed throughout the story. To me, these expansive worlds and all of the detail that the filmmakers have to pump into them can really work wonders to make the viewing experience of any movie that much more special. Thankfully, there is a film that is released in the past few weeks that can very easily be added to this list of jaw-droppingly detailed worlds. And that film in question is Denis Villeneuve's 2021 remake of Dune. Dune was released in both theaters and digital on October 22nd, 2021, and it is based off of the hit classic written in 1965 by Frank Herbert. And one of the most praised qualities of this book just so happens to be the heavily detailed layers that are stacked on top of each other when developing the world. The plot revolves around a power struggle for the natural resource of spice residing within the sandy dunes of a planet known as Arrakis. There are multiple factions that switch diplomacy for this area, as well as an indigenous culture that has resided on the planet for years. From here, you could definitely imagine a political struggle that can come to fruition from this setup. But it's definitely not just the political struggle that feeds into this world being so expansive. There's also a plethora, gigantic multitude of small little details that the director very intently placed in there that come together in an incredibly satisfying way. For one, there's all types of attention given to the cultural consistency of each one of the different factions that is showcased here. The warring primalistic planet, the traditional and main protagonist planet, even the indigenous, relatively primalistic people. Every single one of them has a unique culture and personality that feeds into the architecture of their weapons, their tools. It even feeds into the way that they interact with one another. One great example of this is a scene where a device that kicks up sand belonging to the tribalistic people is given to the main character by one of his friends, and you can very clearly tell that the design of that tool did not come from any other faction. And despite these large and somewhat obvious attempts to make the world even more expansive, there are tens of hundreds of small, minute details that achieve this same effect. There are multiple different languages that are subtly spoken throughout the film, as well as different sign languages. There is a doctor who somehow medically assesses patients by holding his hands over the spot of bother, and sensing some kind of energy or force that comes with that. There are these protective shields that are worn by soldiers in battle that have this very faint outline that is painted around the figure of the person wearing it, while also protecting them. Even the weather conditions of areas that characters are forced to navigate through, with these synthetic suits being developed that somehow recycle the body's sweat into drinkable water. All of the thought and effort put into making this as realized of a world as possible is honestly jaw-dropping. It just goes to show how grand of a spectacle a film can turn out to be when you plan everything out in a thoughtful and artistically masterful way.